right. I just wanted to make a quick video here about how you don't have to reach everybody. All right? You need to just accept whoever God brings into your influence, into your circle, and you deal with that. You don't go out of your way to try to reach the entire world. For example, look at Jesus, where he lived his whole life in Israel. A short time as a child, he went to Egypt, came back, but the whole time he was preaching, it was just in Israel, right? He didn't travel around the whole world trying to reach everybody, right? So if that's how Jesus lived, you should live in the same way, right? But there's so many people that, in a way, sell out to try to reach more people, where they don't want to talk about certain things, or they'll talk about certain things in a certain way to try to reach more people, because they think if they get more people to come into their little group, the better. Yet, again, that's not doing what Jesus did, right? An example, he would say things to the religious leadership and the educated, such as the scribes and lawyers, and his disciples would say, hey, didn't you know that it offended them? And he's like, yeah, so. And I'm, of course, paraphrasing, but that's pretty much his reaction. It was just like, yeah, they're offended, so what? He didn't care about trying to get them to follow him and be his disciple. Matter of fact, uh, one of the disciples that wanted to follow him, he actually tried to discourage him by saying that he doesn't have a place to lay his head, right? That he doesn't have shelter, right? So he's really trying to get people to realize, if you really want to follow me, I want you to be dedicated. I want you to be all in, right? He goes for quality over quantity. Now, if he can get a quantity of quality, of course, I have no doubt he's going to go after that. But a lot of people, they don't care about the quality. They just care about the quantity, right? So they're going to change the way they actually preach to do that. And I'm going to give examples of some things here. There's some people out there that I can understand that they would say, oh, I'm not King James only, and they use other translations, and they want to try to reach more people because not everybody is going to accept King James only, and you're going to tell them that they got to stick with Old English and all that, and a lot of people don't like that, right? They try to get away from it. So I get why they would say, oh, well, we can use these other translations, but these other translations are obviously corrupted, right? You lead people down a dark road that way, because then you get people to doubt the Word of God because there's errors in these translations. They contradict, and they change a lot of doctrine, such as one that I always bring up is 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18, where it changes those of us that are saved to those of us that are being saved. So the King James helps build the faith that you're saved. God saved you. But these other ones will change it to, no, you're not saved. It's a process. You're not there yet, right? So it breeds doubt. And that's just a quick example. So then these people turn around and they will attack King James only as being divisive. But they're being divisive with using all the different translations, because if you're not using the same Bible, you're going to come to different conclusions because they don't all say the same thing. Right? And that is an example. There's people who are going to believe that they're being saved and not actually saved. So if you're using different translations, you're going to come to different conclusions. Yet if King James only, there's no errors in the King James. It doesn't contradict. The only problem people have with it is that it's Old English. That you can learn. It's not a big deal. It's like reading Shakespeare or something, right? It takes you a bit to get used to it. But people will take the time to learn Shakespeare, but not to know the Word of God. But if we were all using the same translation, it actually brings unity. We would all be united, right? Because we'd all be reading the same thing. So those actually causing the division are the ones that want to use a different translation than use any translation. Well, that you're just breeding division then. You're dividing people up by getting them to use all kinds of different Bibles when there's hundreds, maybe even thousands of different English translations. So you're causing division, but then accusing those that are saying, "Hey, let's all use the one true word of God," and you say that's causing division because people don't want to actually use the one true word of God. So if you actually preach King James onlyism, not a lot of people are going to come to you, right? But that's the truth. That's what we ought to be doing. But you're only going to get 1 out of 1 million, 1 out of 10 million, 1 out of 100 million, or even 1 out of 1 billion, right? So they're going to say, no, use whatever translation you want. And then you're going to get all kinds of people, right? Because more people are accepting of that. So you completely preach lies, distort the truth to please others. And there's other things like this that people will do because they want to get more people. But not only that, do they want more people, but they also want them to pay tithes. So they're not going to say anything about the worldly and educated, those who are wise in the world, and not talk about how God doesn't care about their wisdom and knowledge and education. And they're not going to talk too much about how God really doesn't use the rich. Not that he doesn't, but he rarely does. That he's usually going out to the poor, the broken, the outcasts of the world, and he uses those people, the uneducated, the people that everybody looks at as fools. And a lot of people aren't going to talk about that because the educated are the ones that make more money. So they want these kind of people to be in their group so they get more money, right? They'll say some nice things about the poor because they want to keep them there because they want more people. But to get the money, then they're going to, say what they got to say to make, people with the money happy, right? And then there's more almost out there things that people look at as out there that's not a big deal, that it's not a matter of salvation, such as the shape of the earth. There's a lot of people who won't talk about it, or they will really bash people who believe the earth is flat and look at it as that as some crazy foolish thing because they don't want to just believe what the Bible has to say and they don't want to take it as it stands because then people will think you're a fool. They think you're stupid. And you're not going to get a lot of people by preaching such a thing, right? And they think it's not even important. What does it even matter? Well, it may not matter to you because you're saved, but it matters to other people in two different ways. Because there's children out there who are honest, right? And they will look at science and they go, oh, look at how they're presenting the world. The world is a globe, a sphere, and we all came about through evolution. And the Bible contradicts that, so the Bible can't be true, right? So when you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm Christian, I believe the Word of God, and then you tell them, well, even though the Word of God is pretty clear that the earth is not a sphere and it's not moving, that you say, oh no, that's not true. This so-called science is, this science falsely so-called is true. You are telling them that you don't truly believe the Word of God. And if you don't truly believe it, they're not going to really care what you have to say because you're obviously not all in. So if you can doubt the Word of God in one place, you can doubt it in every place. So you're breeding the doubt, not the faith, and you're actually leading others not to believe. Even though you'll bring in people who don't truly believe, right? You might bring in a lot of people because of what you say. But again, you're basically just bringing in tares and planting tares in the church and think you're doing God's service, right? But another way it impacts people is that after the rapture, the fallen angels are going to return claiming to be aliens. And a lot of people have already been indoctrinated by the school system and movies and shows and books that aliens exist and they're coming and we're eventually going to run into them and different things are going to happen, right? So when you're teaching them that the earth is a sphere, that opens the idea for aliens being true. But when you actually tell them the truth that no, it's not a sphere, it's a closed off and domed system that's flat. That's why we can't go back to the moon. That's why we never actually went to the moon. Some more crazy stuff that Christians don't want to actually talk about because you don't get as many people to come in. And when you teach them that, then they know that these so-called aliens are not aliens. They're the fallen angels that the Bible has warned us about. So you could actually lead people at the other side of the rapture into accepting these deceptive angels as aliens and believe what they have to say. Because you were teaching them the whole time that, yeah, the earth's a sphere, and then you happen to be one of the ones that believe the gospel and you get raptured, so they think what you had to say was pure gold and everything you said was true. So you left an example that actually causes a problem and hindrance, a stumbling block for these people to actually come to the gospel, come to salvation, to come to Jesus, to come to the truth. And that's where I'll end the video, is that Jesus says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the truth. So if you're rejecting truth, you're ultimately rejecting Jesus. That's why there's people out there who have never heard of Jesus and Christianity that will still end up being saved because they followed the truth that they did have. They followed their conscience. And because of this, they're saved because accepting the truth and following the truth is following God. You're following Jesus because he is the truth. Right? So I'm going to wrap the video up with that. Thanks for watching. Take care. And preach the truth. Don't worry about if nobody even comes. Jeremiah preached his whole life, didn't convert anybody. Nobody followed him. Right? The leadership of Israel burned his writings. So don't look at that as a failure. You're not here to reach the whole world. Sometimes your witness is to reach people. Sometimes your witness is to show that God tried to reach them and they didn't care. Right? So they can't say that God didn't try. Sometimes that's what your job is, just to show that God tried to reach them. It's not to actually necessarily save them. Right? So do what is right, preach the truth, even if you end up alone. Thanks for watching, and take care.